Hi Ajit, welcome to the CC channel.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So thank you for coming in. I wanted to discuss from an individual, from an expert into HR completely, and someone who has done his MBA from a premier institute. So welcome here. There'll be a set of questions I'll be asking you starting from the MBA journey and then moving into your professional journey altogether.
Sure.
So, talking about your first experience, I mean, the time you have been a developer in TCS. So, how did this transition happen? You know that would have been a time where you thought about doing your MBA. So, why MBA and why MBA and HR in specific?
Quite an interview question.
Yes.
uh, to be honest, while I was doing my BTech, right, I had this aspiration of going for a higher education. But then it was MTech and not MBA, right? Got into my first company through campus placement. I started liking the corporate journey there. And, MTech specifically would require a lot of preparation. I was
Yeah.
into core electrical, right? So you need to solve
Okay.
those problems and all.
Correct.
And as you stop doing that, you tend to lose the touch, right? You tend to forget the formulas. You tend to forget the various rules that a electrical subject would be having, right? So then I thought, why not MBA, right? If I look at the kind of exams that you give, right, CAS, ZAT, or whatever, more into apti, more into verbal ability and all those, right? So very common thing, something which we have been doing since our childhood, right?
Correct,
Maths,
correct,
science,
correct.
English and all those. So I thought probably that would be a easier aspect for me. So I
Okay.
chose the easier path. The other thing is I wanted it to do down the line, right? I wanted to have solid 2 to 3 years of experience and probably then, start the MBA. And my thought process was probably I'll start appearing for the exams after 2 years into my
Okay.
first company,
Okay. Okay.
right? But then something happened, right, which triggered me saying, why shouldn't I try from now on, right? And I think my first attempt was in December 2016 was when I first filled the form. And it was so late, right? Because I made up a mind all of a sudden, I just came back from office and I was like, I think I should try giving it, right? Appearing for it. And by that time, all the forms were closed except for
Yes.
ZAT,
Yes. Yes.
right? So
Yes.
ZAT was the only exam that I appeared then without prep. I applied in December. The exam was in Jan, and also not much of a prep. I didn't even have the books, no coaching, nothing. And I, kind of pulled out a decent score there. So I thought, okay, let's try it from now on. And that's where it started, right? And HRM, because, no specific reason, right? I had an inner pulling towards HR. And probably that's the reason, I was more inclined to pursue it under the HRM and rather than, something else.
Okay, great. So, for the viewers, Ajit has done his graduation in 2016. So, coming back to you again, 2016, your first attempt was there, and finally you joined the college in 2019.
Correct.
So, this whole journey, I mean, you have been a developer. How it has been tough for you? How it was going? Did you give another in the next year itself, subsequent years, or did you straightforwardly went for 2018 CAT?
No, I did give another in 2017, right?
Okay.
What was difficult for me was juggling, right? So I was into a support come enhancement project then.
Okay.
So weird timings, right? Sometimes if issues come up, you do have to stay back and solve it as well, right? So, and I wasn't, very much in favor of coachings as well. Because if you see, I had a couple of friends who went for coaching there as well, right? And the way it works is for working professionals, entire Saturdays and Sundays go.
Very hectic.
Right? And the kind of project that I was in, the client was based out of Middle East and Africa. So I didn't have Sunday as an option.
Oh my God.
My offs were Fridays and Saturdays. I used to work on Sundays, right? So anyway, 50% of the time was gone, right? So
Correct,
that
correct.
wasn't anyway the option for me.
Yes.
And then when you tend to leave alone, right? You have these friends, you have everything, you tend to go out, you tend to party, you tend to, trips and everything, right? Managing under that, those, although not a distraction, but still a distraction for preparation, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that was a tough part. But then, getting time, whatever little time, I would say what is needed is quality time and not quantity time. Getting that and preparation was, it was tough, and probably that's why I took 3 attempts if I count 2016.
Okay, great. So yeah, I do agree with your point. I mean, being doing a full-time job along with the study is very hectic, and when it is rotational off, that is the
Yeah.
biggest problem. I mean, your social life, anyways, it is being compromised a little, but again, your preparation time as well comes
Correct.
to a little bit of compromise here and there. Of course, I do agree with it. So how? So your preparation mostly was a self-study part, or?
Yeah, it was a self-study.
Uh,
And that too, first entire year, right? 2016, 2017. I also had night shifts. So,
Oh my God.
after that I didn't have, but first year I did have night shifts. So one week in a month, right? So when you do 1 week in a month, your sleep, cycle also changes, right? So it affects.
Exactly. I have done night shift for 3 months completely, continuously.
Yeah, so it's tough, right?
It's very tough. Your completely biological cycle.
Correct, it changes, right?
Yeah.
There will be nights you won't be able to sleep
Correct.
because for 1 week you haven't been sleeping.
You haven't been sleeping.
So it affects, right? So that also affected the preparation.
But I'm surprised to know that being a developer in TCS, still you have night shifts in there.
As I told, it was a support come enhancement project,
Okay.
right? There would be slight enhancements there, but then support was a part of it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why the first 1 year, right? First 1 year, you would not be given much of a responsibility.
Much responsibility. Yeah.
That comes, after the second and third year. That was when my night shift was stopped because, I stopped venturing into that part itself, right? But the first 1 year, I feel that was also needed to understand the entire system, how it affects, right? How the actions that I did in my second and third year, how it will be affecting the entire operations, right?
Okay.
Probably that was the reason.
Okay. So, Ajit, talking about your aspiration to do MBA, right? Many of the people do, in their technical journey, they always think about doing their MBA, or probably, have in confusion whether they should go for an MBA or not that way. So, if someone from a technical background, if he thinks about doing an MBA, why he should do it, and when he should do it?
Okay. So it totally, it's an individualistic choice. I'll speak about myself, right? I came from an electrical background.
Okay.
I was coding,
Yes.
which I wasn't very good at, right? But I was blessed to have these two friends at my workplace in my project who kind of helped me to understand the code, right? To write a code from scratch. And they helped me develop something also, which then gave me a confidence that, yes, I can pull this off, right? And that's what I continued doing for 3 years. But then I understood, right? I cannot expect to get this help from everywhere.
Okay.
Right? Tomorrow I might not be there with this company. I might move to some other company. My technology might change. The language I code in might change, right? And I didn't have that confidence, right? I can pull it without someone's help. And I cannot always expect people to be this good, right? Because to be honest, there's a competition everywhere, right?
Yes.
So I can't expect people to be, helping you, selflessly, right? So that was the reason, I was looking out for higher studies. That was my inner calling, right?
Okay.
Because I knew I probably cannot sustain in this field for a long time. And that's why I thought, okay, let me do something which I am passionate about. Those initial 3 years kind of pulled me towards business as well, because, the kind of work that I was doing was techno-functional. We ventured a lot into the functional aspect also. So, that kind of inclined me towards the business understanding. And hence, then I thought probably, yes, this is what I should be doing, right? So it depends on the individual. If you have that passion, please go ahead with it. But then, it's not that, every technical person to progress in his journey, MBA is absolutely needed. Because at some point of time, right? Say, even if you are a techie, 10 years down the line, you would be probably a manager. There would be a team under you. You would gradually pick up those skills, right? Those project management skill, people management skill. You are going to pick it up. And today, the way the world runs, there are n number of courses available there. You go to Udemy, you go to Coursera, there are so many courses available, right? So, and companies do sponsor a lot of trainings as well these days, right? Which was probably not something which companies used to do 10, 20 years down the line. But
Correct.
companies do that today, right? They sponsor it because they have understood that, what upskilling would mean for themselves as well, right? It's always difficult and costly to get a talent outside than to train someone internally and make the person stay. So, so that, if you don't get an MBA, probably, your company would be doing that if you have that caliber and interest, right? So you would be picking it up on the go.
Okay, so but again, many of the individuals will have this mindset that probably if someone has an MBA degree, so he may get shortlisted for a job more quicker than that person. I mean, I'm talking about person who has 8+ years experience, 10+ years experience in their technical expertise again. So, do you see that value in MBA that they can actually, cater to the needs of the employer?
Not really, right? But see, again, it's very role specific, right? So if I have to talk from a technical position point of view, right? Today, the way companies are going, they would expect a techie to have the understanding, right? But not they would not, because when you do an MBA, right, you tend to do away with your technical skills, right? For example, I did an MBA now. I don't know when I last coded. It was during my first corporate stint that I coded, right? So if you give me to write that one line of code today, probably I'll not be able to. I'll not be able to write that.
Yes.
I might have the logic in my hand, but I'll not be able to code it, right? So today, what companies are looking for is people who have both the skills, right? The people management skill, product management skill, those I would rather say are easy to pick as something which you will get with experience as well. For example, even if you do an MBA today and get into a product management or people management practice, right? You would still be raw there, right? For you to be a finished product, you still need certain, either you need to handle a very large span, because then you brush up your skills every day, you get new problems, challenges every day. That is one way. Or you need to spend, some good amount of time to get, used to it and then start performing or delivering, a very good quality product, right? So I don't think so it's needed. And I don't think so that would be a drawback if you don't have MBA, but you are able to justify that you still possess the skills which is needed.
So a one word answer. So does qualification matters? MBA qualification matters?
Tough question to answer, but I would say it would be both yes and no, right? Again, depending on
situational basis.
Yeah,
in
position
HR
basis. HR, I would say there are certain positions which does not require, right? Recruiters, for example, it is not required. I have seen many recruiters. It's a good to have. MBA is a good to have, because then you understand how the entire HR ecosystem works. If I offer a candidate, for example, there's always a salary range which you would be aware of, right? While offering a candidate. But you cannot offer 100 percentile.
Yes.
You cannot offer 90 percentile, 95 percentile, right? Perhaps as a recruiter, if you have not done an MBA or if you do not have the understanding of the entire HR ecosystem, right?
Yes.
You would not understand why am I being limited from doing that, when if I do that, I can get 10 more candidates, right? The logic is, down the line, that plays a very important, that creates a problem, right? Because we have to also look at parity. It cannot so happen that, I get someone at 100 percentile and I lose 10 other people who go back and complain, hey, you offered him this much, why are you offering me this much?
Yes.
Although, we say that as HRs, you should not be discussing compensation, but we all very well know that is very widely discussed in a company, right? So everyone knows everyone's compensation.
Yes.
People compare pay slips, right?
Correct, yes.
So that's not something which can be hidden. So MBA does give you, that understanding of the subject early on. But if not, as a recruiter also, you can get it down the line, right? 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the line, when you interact with more people, right? When you go through the entire cycle, you will understand why it is done. So MBA just fast tracks it. But then, I don't think so, nothing more than that.
So, Ajit, talking about my journey, what I have seen, I have joined as a recruiter into talent acquisition completely. So, I have gained this exposure from individuals who are already in recruitment, that if you're a recruiter, most probably, you're not able to switch to a more strategic role. I mean, that may happen in the early days of your tenure completely, but I think because of given the fact that if they have a set of the skills in recruitment, they're most likely to be utilized in a more efficient manner than giving them more strategic role. But it has been a trend. Recruiters who are mostly coming to the recruitment industry, they're less likely to be given a position of a more strategic role, and that has been my call to actually look for an MBA degree. Because I got to know that, being a recruiter, and if you're looking for a switch, again, they will be asking you a very important question, which comes, do you have an MBA degree in HR? And I have seen in many of the LinkedIn jobs itself that they actually put this bracket, preferably from MBA in HR or compulsorily in MBA in HR, that way. So do you think it's still in practice, or have you seen that much into trend right now? And again, a follow-up question on this: why is MBA right now so much in trend? Because when you look back at the time when you graduated, around before that, or once you came into this bachelor's degree college 2012 2013, there was not so much in trend comparatively to nowadays. So why you have seen this paradigm shift towards MBA?
Okay. So answering your second question first,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
disagree
yeah.
to
Step by
that,
step.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, today the way tech is earned, right? Especially after COVID. And let's be honest, right? Pay matters, right?
Of
At the
course.
end of the day, I mean, it's all hypothesis, and, it's good to hear and say that, quality of work matters, culture matters. Those obviously matter. But at the end of the day, pay matters.
Important factor.
Yes, it is a very important factor. You cannot expect to live in a city like Bangalore or Mumbai and say, hey, I have a very good job. I love my job. I love the culture of my company, but I get paid 4 lakhs per annum.
No.
You cannot sustain your life, right? So pay at the end matters. And the way, technical jobs have been quite lucrative, and they will continue to be lucrative is what I believe, right? And as we grow, right? And, this is a trend which I have seen and heard from few of my friends. There are colleges in abroad, not very sure of in India or not, but abroad which have started mixing technology along with management studies. Okay.
Yes.
So say for example, if it's a 4-year course, probably first 3.5 years, they would be learning the technical aspect, and rest, half year or 1 year, they would be into that management side where they understand the management aspect of it. So, that is probably the future, right? Where, you expect people to understand how the management works, how the operations work, as well as have their technical ability. And that's where colleges are evolving too, right? So I would rather say MBA as a sole degree is perhaps not in trend, but a combination of it is something is in, trend right now.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it again comes to one's own aspirations.
Correct.
Because if someone is in technical, he wants to move into marketing sort of job. I mean, then again, people will be questioning you that what is your base of coming into marketing.
Correct.
You may not be interested of coming in. So that master's degree or a degree actually shows that you have been interested into that. You have done that. Now that it is very much most likely you're going to sustain in this job.
Correct.
That way.
And the other aspect is, keeping this technical people aside, right? We have a whole lot of graduates who come from arts or commerce background, right? Commerce, they still can go into CA and all those CS practices and all, right? But in India, I personally feel there's a lack of jobs for arts and those allied streams, right? And probably, that's why, coming back to your first question, that's why, there's the ask for MBA there. Because when you do an arts, say MA history, right? What do you understand? What do you understand about how business works, right? Or BA history, right? What do you understand how business works? Nothing, right?
Correct.
We have been studying about history all throughout. And how many jobs do you think in India do we have to accommodate BA or MA history grads?
Not many. I can't think of
So
much.
where will those people go, right? They still need to earn a livelihood, right?
Yes.
We have right to livelihood as a fundamental right.
Exactly.
So where will those people go?
Exactly.
Right? So probably that is the aspect that industry is bringing in, wherein they ask for an MBA because they essentially want you to understand the entire ecosystem, right? And yes, you very correctly said, right? People have started asking MBA in HR for recruiter role because today they don't expect a recruiter to be solely a recruiter. Right? They want the recruiter to understand how the ecosystem works. For example, HR analytics is in trend now, right?
Very much.
As a recruiter, right? How would you understand how many positions you want to fulfill and how many offers that you have to make? That's where HR analytics, for instance, comes into play, right? But analytics is simple maths is what I will say. But how will you draw insights from that? until and unless you have the understanding of the entire system, your insights would probably be one-sided. It will not cover the entire aspect. Right? You can simply go ahead and ask your comp team, hey, give me a raise in pay scale slabs, and probably I'll get you people. But how does that affect the company? Right? How to have that understanding, that is what is needed. So just like, I would say, just like the tech world has moved from, full stack developers, back-end developers, front-end developers to full stack developers, probably that's where HR is also heading to, right? Everyone wants everyone to know everything, so that, they can efficiently utilize that resource. If I understand HR, probably, during the downtime, right, when recruitment does not happen, companies can probably move that person to some other role, right? If there's a vacancy and there's a need,
Yes.
instead of hiring someone from outside, provided the person has that capability, right? So if you are just a, recruiter without a, MBA degree or understanding of the business as such,
Correct.
right? Or in very initial stages where you didn't get the scope or whatever it is to understand how the entire business runs. You lack that, right? So how will business place you? Right?
Exactly.
And layoffs are,
Inevitable.
always, it's even bad for a company, right? They tend to go into news for all bad news and all. No one would like that. There's always the last point to do, right? So, yeah. So that's where it comes into play.
Yes. I do agree with your point totally. I mean, when we look back about the recruiters around 20 years, 30 years, or in 1990s, that time the industrial boom was not there in India. The outsourcing boom that we have right now, so many technical companies into place. So indirectly, it has affected the candidates, the employability as well. I mean, when I'm talking about a candidate who is into IT and looking for a switch, he comes to me. I'm very much sure that he is not only coming to me. For instance, he might have like 3 to 4 offers. But talking about 20 years back, it was not the case. Only 1 or 2 companies hardly were there, and people used to hire and retire. That kind of journey.
Yeah.
So right now, it's not that way. And also, analytics play a very pivotal role in this. I mean, talking about the insights of it, how many candidates are available in the region, how much they're more likely to join us, because then we get to know about the number of competition that is coming into the market totally. I do agree with your point in this. And analytics, I think everything is data driven right now, and we are seeing a lot more of it. And recruiters do need to upskill in terms of their analytical ability, or talking about the insight thing as well. They need to understand data right now.
Yeah.
Ajit, coming back to your MBA in HR, right? So many of the people do have this question: if the course is providing MBA majors in HR, right now we have seen in these 5 years that colleges are more likely to give MBA in HR degree rather than MBA majors in HR, minors in marketing, or something else. So how it is different, both of the courses?
See, I would rather say more or less same, right? The degree that I pursued, MBA in HRM, we kind of still pursued, the regular courses. It can be finance, it can be accounting, economics, macro, both, right? We had all those papers as well. Similarly, for, the minors and majors, they tend to still go through all those papers,
Okay.
but they tend to choose, right? Minor is basically, probably you'll be having 2 or 3 papers. Major, you'll be having 4 or 5 or more of that, right? That still happens with us as well, right? So I would not say, much of a difference there. For me, I would rather say probably, HR, I had the most number of papers, so probably that would qualify our majors for me. And I don't exactly remember, but then the one that had, the next to it, right? Probably economics. Probably, that part would play the next minor for me, right? So otherwise, it's more or less the same, right? It's more or less, I would rather say, the nomenclature difference that plays in, rather than, what actually goes in.
So this minors, I don't think you had minors options as marketing or operations.
We didn't have
right?
minors option there, but the way, it is classified is, say, as I have seen in colleges, if you tend to pursue a course with certain credits, right, that qualifies as your majors,
Okay.
right? If you tend to pursue a number of papers, on a certain number of credits, say, let's say the first one is 15 credit, it qualifies as your majors. 5 credit is qualifies as your minors, right? That's how it plays out, right?
Okay.
So if I consider that, there were subjects where probably I have, qualified that minor criteria as well, but we don't call it, right? Because for us, it's simply, MBA in HRM. So I would rather say it's just a nomenclature difference and not much of there, right? Yes, the other thing probably difference is when you talk about minors and majors, people get to select that probably in their second year. Right? When it comes to us, MBA in HRM, that is something which we have selected right before taking admission. Right? So that's probably the only difference, right? When you get to choose.
I think one more difference to point out, the employability, right? I think you won't be getting a lot of opportunities into other domains like marketing or finance or operations. But someone who has done MBA majors in HR or minors in marketing, they can be able to sit in the placements for marketing as well. But in case of MBA and HRM, less likely.
Yeah, that's true. Less likely because see, today the way it works is majority through campus placements, right? When you are in a college, so companies come specific for a particular skill, right? Within HR, you would be having a lot of opportunities there, right? But then what we have also seen, there are consulting roles which come in.
Okay.
There would be probably a workday consultant or a success factor consultant which comes in, right? Those are a blend of it. You don't get to do sole HR work there. You should be having the HR understanding. At the same time, it's more of a consultant where you go speak to a company and say, how do you solve their problem using a success factor or workday, right? So those kind of roles will be there, right? Which is a mixture, right? That is something which a regular management guy can also do without a majors in HR. If they, understand, how the system works, right? So that is how it's different. Other than that, yes.
Yeah, we're talking about roles here, workforce management, right? So, do you think the first position of a candidate into HR once I'm coming to this field, does it matter? Because workforce management, again, a blend of everything, right? Not totally focused upon the HR, human resources department completely. So, how he is able to transition his career completely in HR, he wants to wish into HRBP position. So, again, a one-word question. Is this designation important for the first job after MBA?
I would say no. I would say the more than designation, the role matters. So yes, kind of yes there, but you will always have that option, right, to switch streams within HRs as well. But you have to be careful there, right? There are many companies which are very stringent there, right? If you are a recruiter, you will always be doing recruitment. They will never allow you to move to other streams. But then there are many companies as well which allow you that position, right? Today we have a lot of certifications also, right, which kind of open that door for you. Today, if you go and browse LinkedIn or job boards, you will also find that companies have started asking for you need to have this certification, right? It can be a HRBP certification, it can be a Comp and Ben certification, can be even for recruitment there's a certification that is there, right? So fine, even if you have spent a substantial number of days there, probably you can undergo these certifications, which will ensure that, which will be a proof that you have actually, you do actually hold those competencies to be part of that job role, right? And what I understand is many of these certification organizations do also provide you with a network, right? Networking is a key these days, right? So they do also provide you with a network where you can go speak to people. That opens the channel of referrals for you to venture out and also then juggle between roles if needed. But then that, I would rather say most of the companies are stringent on the role switches.
And talking about certifications, I mean, even if you're certified and doesn't know the basic or even the part of study that you have done, the learnings that you have taken, certificate doesn't play any role if you don't know anything apart of it. Certification plus your rigorous learning in that complete training is much needed.
Correct.
I have seen individuals who have the certification but don't know in and out of the complete course.
Yeah, that I think specifically happened during COVID, right?
Oh,
People
yes.
on LinkedIn, Insta, everywhere. Hey, I have received 50 certifications. I mean,
Correct.
within 3 months, 2 months, 50 certificates. I really don't. I fail to understand what people would have retained. And the other thing is, if you learn something, you don't use it. You tend to forget it.
Yes.
Right? So then the certification becomes irrelevant for you, right? So certification is just a part. It will help you get something, but it cannot be a sole criteria to get you that thing, right? So, and as you said, like learning, the ability to learn, to be open for learning is something which is, very much needed, and something which I think there are companies which also look specifically out for that. If you have that learning capability, they will tend to take you and train you on that.
Correct.
So that is needed.
Yep. Everywhere, I think this is one principle which is mostly evaluated for a candidate is learning, right? Learning curve should be there.
Yeah.
Because without learning, I think the interest will not come. And many other factors. I mean, when I was working at Amazon, even there they have a principle called learn and be curious. Where the grade actually bases on your learning curve, how much you are more likely to learn about these new technologies, and also be curious about all the other everything here and in and out about your job completely. So for sure that matters. So coming to your MBA life completely, Ajit, you have been a 3-year experienced guy who went to the business school. There will be a lot of freshers also coming into place. I mean, the mindset of course do matters. While he doesn't have any corporate experience, you do have 3+ years corporate experience at that front. So how have you taken that? How has been your MBA journey completely, MBA life?
Rightly said, right? Two extreme ends, people without, people with much more experience as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
But there is very, very less percentage.
Very less.
1 or 2, 3 more people.
Yes. But you will have.
Okay.
Right? You will have that group as well. So there would be different mindsets, right? For example, I have seen cases where, our seniors have shouted on the entire batch because someone wrote a mail to them.
Sorry, with senior. You were in second year?
I was in first year. So one of our seniors.
One of your seniors. Okay.
He shouted at the entire batch. Right?
Junior batch,
us. Because someone had written hello in the mail instead of dear. Now, right, that is something which comes from a fresher. I remember when, in my first corporate stint, I used to write, hey, dear, XYZ, blah, blah stuff. Then I started saying, hey, no one uses dear, right? It's hi, hello, hey, whatever it is, right? Yes. So that's the mindset difference, right? And there are more such cases, right? But then, you get to learn from everyone, right? What you get to learn from a fresher is probably that, attitude or that, eagerness to go back and study, right? After you work for 3, 4, 5 years, you tend to, let go of that habit. Yes. You cannot write even one full page without paining your hands, right? Yeah. So that is something you pick up from a fresher. You pick up the fresh ideas from them, right? On the other hand, what a fresher picks up from an experienced guy is how the corporate journey has been, what they can expect from the, corporate life. Probably the first internship, right? Or as an experienced person, probably I'll know how to work in an office, how to hold a conversation with someone, right? Probably a fresher would lack that, right? I don't say that all freshers will, but probably they might be underconfident or something that sort of, right? So probably that's where, people with experience comes into play. And that's what the entire journey has been, right? You exchange ideas, and that's where there's a mixture in MBA life, which gives you the actual learning more than textbooks, right? For MBA, it's the experience that matters. It's not the, what you learn on books. That is something which is always available on the internet, probably. The subject, you go search, you'll get the entire book, right? So there's nothing big deal in that. What you gain is the experience of how do you deal with people, right? Tomorrow, it might so happen that, the company that you work in, a junior might be your manager. How do you manage there, right? How do you handle the situation there, right? To be honest, everyone has an ego to a certain degree, right? Yes. And we all are humans, right? Yes. We cannot say that, I cannot say that I don't have ego, I can accommodate with everyone, I don't get angry and all this. You can never claim that, right? So how will you accommodate that there, right? So that is something which you get to learn in MBA as well.
Correct.
Right? So that's what MBA is about.
People management.
Experience. Correct. How do you, understand people, right? So experience. How do you work in a team? When you work in a team, right? We have this word in MBA. I don't know if it's therefore others honor. Free riders.
Okay.
That basically means, suppose you are a group of 5, you have an assignment to submit. Free riders are those who will not show up for a meeting as well. Okay, MBA also does that. How do you hold a meeting, right? How do you call people? And MBA happens at all odd hours. Your assignment submission will be at 11:59:59. You give, at 12 you are done. Your assignment will not be considered. You will not be marked, right? You lose that score, right? How do you manage that, right? That is MBA, right? So how do you ensure that everyone comes at night to sit, do that assignment, and then go present in the morning, right? So that's what
MBA teaches you to how to manage things, and
Correct.
before that, I think in the preparation, do make you 25% give you managerial skills altogether. I mean, when you're talking about these your MBA journey along with your work experience while you were doing it, you had that sense of management altogether along with your work, how you're managing a preparation strategy as well. So I have heard a famous quote from a person who said that half your journey is completed while you're preparing for it. Half of the manager is already made while you're doing preparation, because then you have to handle a lot of things. Even CAT is about time management and selection.
Yeah.
How do you manage your time? And I am not sure if you've given Snap as well. The Snap also have the same thing. 1 minute in a question, if you don't solve it, you have to prepare the answers in your mind itself. If you don't prepare the answer within 20 seconds, move to the next question, do it.
Correct. Yeah.
That way. That is a management strategy that you learn from the preparation journey itself.
Yeah. That's what MBA actually teaches you, right? I remember we have a professor, right? And it was, during my second year. So we were having online classes because of COVID. So, he would teach us something right in the middle of class. He would say, okay, this is the problem statement, right? He would display something on the screen, right? And he would say, I want all the mails with the answers to me within 3 minutes.
Oh.
And those answers had to be rated on, right? So just imagine you understanding the question, writing the answers on a mail and mailing it to him.
Oh my God.
Right? And after 3 minutes it's done. He would say, I'll not consider the mail that has come after this point of time. Right? So that's what time management is, right? Because in real life, right, when you go into business, when you start working, everything is time bound, right? Even say there are certain aspects which you do after a period of time does not hold any relevance, right? So that's what it teaches you.
Okay.
Right?
So you talk about your MBA you have done in your COVID time, right? So how your classes have been, and for the batches who are coming right now into picture, so what are the differences they are going to see that time when you had your own MBA in that COVID time and right now when everything is normalized?
I would say we are the ones who lost out on a lot of things.
Okay.
Right? So MBA first year is about hustle, right? Second year is where you mentor.
But you did your first year completely in campus itself.
Correct. First year completely in campus. So that was a hustle.
Yeah.
Right? Second year is where you mentor your juniors and have the fun, right? And we lost out on the fun part, right?
Shit.
So that was one thing, right? But yes, today's people who are doing it today, they will be getting that. And 2 years journey, right? That actually helps you build a network. I would rather say, in that 1 year that we had, we lost half of our networks probably, because how much would you connect online, right, with your juniors, or even probably they also lost some part of it, right? So today's generation, right, who go through an MBA would probably do that. MBA is again about networking, and networking is not just about how many people you speak to, but how many people you are in connection with, right? You can always say a hi bye to 1,000 or people. Someone comes to your college, or you visit someone's college, you just say a hi bye, take numbers, and then there's a complete null and void period, right? But that's not what network is, right? Network is when you build that connection, build that rapport. And it's not about, quantity, but then about quality as well.
Yes.
But then, if you don't have that quantity, the number of quality will also come down. Right?
Exactly.
So you tend to lose on that. So probably we lost on that. and probably today's generation will have that.
How do you leverage MBA connections?
Multiple ways, right? For example, if I have to design a process today, right, I can get in touch with them to understand how it is done in their company. Right.
Okay.
So if I, for example,
Just basis on the base on your that's because they are batchmates.
yeah, batchmates, or because I have known them, right, because of whatever so reason, and we have maintained that
Again,
connection.
building rapport, right?
Yeah, building rapport, right? Because see, for example, if I have to design a process for my company, right, I need to do a market research, right? How it is done in the market to understand what other companies do. Now, if I don't have any connection, what will I do is I'll approach someone on LinkedIn, right? What's the chance that the person will answer that, and why should he answer that?
And how many are going to give?
Correct.
us?
And I'm saying, right, for if someone randomly approaches me and I'll say, how is it done in your company for this particular thing, probably I'll never go back and answer.
Correct.
Why should I answer, right? Because I don't know the person. I don't trust the person. How will the person be using that?
Again, confidentiality.
Yeah,
comes in
I really don't know, right? So those are the things that helps you there, right? And again, the other thing it helps you is when you try to look out, right? Referrals do play a major part, right? If you see the way referrals have worked, right, they work dual ways. First of all, they give you a quality candidate, because if you are not sure of someone's capabilities, right, probably you'll never go ahead and refer him or her,
Yes.
right? Because
Makes
your
sense.
own image is at stake, right? So it's a general understanding that a referral most of the times gets you a good candidate, right? The other thing that it leads to is, for example, say, I referred you because I know you, right? And tomorrow if I, think to switch, probably, I'll think twice, right? Because, hey, I know this person, I have got used to this, we spend quality time together, right? Probably in the new company, I might not be knowing anyone. So it also increases the stickiness factor for an employee.
He has been here, he has done that. How it is
Correct.
going to be? Again, he has been in that picture. He may
Yeah.
correctly tell me. Makes sense. Yes. So yes, about over the journey, MBA journey again. So what do you call your junior self who is getting admitted to a MBA right now? Because you right now know what you should have done, and so what do you tell your junior self?
Okay. So, I have been quite a shy person in my MBA journey, right? So probably I would, want myself to be more extrovert there, to go speak to as many people as I can. It can be batchmates, it can be juniors, seniors. I hardly remember, any senior I spoke to, right? There are a few I'm still in connect with, but other than that, none, right? So probably that is something I would go back and change in my junior self.
And few pointers that you want to give for a MBA who is going to admit to MBA degrees. Pointers they should focus upon in their MBA journey. Like making connections is one point.
Correct.
Second would be what?
Never shy away from rigor. MBA as a journey, right? It will put you into a lot of pressure, right? Time will everyone has 24 hours, right? But how do you manage that 24 hours? You're having n number of work. You'll be having your assignments. You'll be having your classes. You'll be having your project work. You'll be having your placements to focus on. You'll be perhaps doing a side-by-side internship that you will have to focus on. You'll have to do committee work if you are part of, and which you should be part of. And then there would be multiple other competitions which would be running, right? So how do you manage so many things in one go? Because you cannot let any of this go, right? You cannot simply say, hey, MBA is about experience journey, so I'll not focus on my studies. You'll simply fail, right?
Okay, yes.
So you still need those grades. You still need those marks, right? So how do you focus that? How do you manage your time? So don't shy away from hustle. Don't shy away from pressure. That's the point of time, when you learn how to handle this.
Correct.
So this probably is, second and the most valuable part. Because if you are able to trust me, if you are able to manage it in MBA, the rigor, you'll be able to manage it anywhere else. And I say this because, I kind of personally felt this, right? When I came out of MBA and I joined my corporate, I was like, I have so much of free time, right? That's because I was so used to, doing so many things in just 24 hours. After MBA, I kind of felt, hey, I have so much free time. What do I do? Right?
Okay, that way.
So So you have to get in that mode. Right?
Hmm. Okay, so we are talking about committees. Committees. I have attended an event wherein there were PPO holders, multiple PPO holders, and who have won some prestigious awards. These case studies in the B schools. So from them, they have taken a stand saying that committees work are too rigorous. You won't be focusing about the other part of your curriculum. I mean, about your course completely, going into competitions or focusing on the grades. How do these committees being a part of it matters? Because on from a standpoint of being a fresher, of course it does matter it being something to a CV, but for a working professional, how much committing something to a committees do matter?
See, to be honest, it matters. Okay, the thing that they spoke about, too much rigor, too much time, that is true, right? But then you have to decide for yourself, right? I mean, not all committees take too much of your time. You can choose to be part of that committee, which does not have a lot of activities, right? But have certain number of activities. And I say that is needed because, how do you manage the event? Tomorrow you go to a corporate after an MBA. They might say hey, you have to undertake this responsibility, have to ensure that this thing happens. How do you manage that? How do you speak to multiple stakeholders there? That's where the committee works come into play, right? They give you that, bit, I would say, trailer kind of experience where, you understand how to raise money as well. Most of the committee works, right?
Yes.
Partially students pay for it, but you see the college fest and all, those all are sponsorships, right?
Yep.
How do you get that much money? Right? So say, just imagine after MBA, if you have to do a startup of your own, right? You need to have that skill to go speak to random people, ensure that they pay you. And
Correct.
why would someone pay you, right? Why would I pay you, right? Money is everything, right? It's my hard-earned money. Why should I give you? Right? How do you convince people?
Yes.
You get the negotiation skills from there.
Yes.
So it is needed, right? But then to a limit, right? Because you cannot be giving everything to a committee. Right? You have to understand the people there. I have seen there are few seniors, right? When you initially join a committee, you would be a junior member or a shadow member.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then there would be seniors who would be leading it, who would basically be in the second year. Second year gives you n number of players at time, right? Because you don't have a lot of number of subjects comes down and you get used to it and all those, right?
Okay,
So you tend to
Yes.
manage, right? And once you are placed, then everything is done for you.
Correct.
Right?
Which committee you have been a part of?
I was part of international relations.
Okay.
Okay, but then I could not handle it.
What does it mean?
Basically, you have seen this, people going to other colleges abroad as a kind of student exchange programs. Right?
Okay.
So that's what the committee used to do.
You're not able to handle it?
No, I left it midway, right? And the reason I left it was I was getting too stressed, right? I was trying for my internships.
Okay.
My CV was not getting converted. Forget about an interview, right? My CV was not getting converted. And, that was putting a lot of stress on me. So, I thought, I probably have the work ex, right? I probably know how to speak to people. This is not something new for me, right? And the kind of work that I was doing was poster making.
Okay.
Right? So I didn't see much of addition to that, right? So you always need to evaluate that, right? Whether that, does actual skill addition to you or not.
And
right?
whether does interests you or
Correct.
not.
Interest you, whether it does skill addition to you. I could not see, how that poster making skill would help me in future.
Correct.
Right? I'm
Makes
not
sense.
a graphic
Makes sense.
designer.
Totally.
Right? So
Yep.
I didn't see a point. Right? And it was adding to a stress, right? So I let it go. Right? But then there are other committees, right? Say the placements in most of the business schools are run through student-driven committees. So there you speak to actual company, you convert them. You tend to, negotiate them for a higher CTC for your college. You tend to negotiate, hey, you come on this day and not on this day. There will be companies which would push you, hey, we'll go on day 0, day 1. As a committee member, you would have given your commitment to some other company that your day 0 is day 1.
Correct.
So you have to push them for, hey, you have to come on day 2. Why should they accept that?
Yep.
Right? So probably, that Placecom is probably one of the most tiring jobs.
Tiring and elite again.
Yes, it is one of the most tiring jobs, right? it is one of those jobs which, where your friends might turn into your foes,
Is it?
right? Because see, everyone would be expecting I mean, this should not happen, but everyone would expect as a, hey, mera dost hai, so I should,
A bit of biasness.
yes, right? You cannot have that, right? So that is something which you should be managing as a person also. You cannot be biased to someone, and that probably is something which we HRs do also in our daily life, right? You cannot be biased to
Exactly. We have been, meant to be that way. So Ajit, one of my friend was telling that Placecom members actually drive their resume to recruiters. And another friend tells me that Placecom doesn't have the highest offered salary. It's always the non-Placecom members. So, what is the given fact? What is the reality in
See,
this?
I would say both are true. Okay. At the end of the day, it's the company which takes the call, right? Although, if you see, Instagram and all, there are posts where people accuse the Placecom saying that, hey, they are taking all the good jobs for themselves, right? But at the end of the day, it's a company which selects, and they would obviously select a person which has a particular level of caliber.
Okay.
So probably what a Placecom member can do for himself or herself is put him into the process, right? Discuss with the recruiter, make some leeway and put him or herself into the process. But at the end of the day, is a company which will select the best of the candidate. So really does not matter if you are a Placecom or not. But then yes, there are biases
Given
everywhere.
advantages.
Humans, you cannot do away with those biases, because see,
Yes.
if I am a recruiter going to a college, if I see someone has dealt with me really good, right? If you are the Placecom member, I am the recruiter, and you are able to get that higher offer from me, which I was not willing to. So what will I infer for you? I will infer, hey, this person has really good negotiation skill. He could buy me, right? He could convince me,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
So probably that's what something plays a role, right? But
Yep.
then those are probabilities. I've never been part of those committees, right? So, but then, I understand that probably this is how it works out, right? This is what human psychology is. And you can never eliminate biases. Even a recruiter will always have biases, right? That's why there are, wrong hires and right hires as well, right? Otherwise, with the interview process, you should always be having right hires. Why do you have a wrong hire, right? So that's still fine, I would say, right? It's a mixture of both.
I do like your answers. I mean, the way you have detailed everything and given a critical thinking over these things, I really can relate to a lot of things. Why they are getting placed a lot. Of course, makes sense. So, Ajit, talking about your internship, I mean, you have done your internship Tiger Analytics. So, how it has been your journey over there, and what do you suggest people who wants to get a PPO from the same internship organization itself? How do you have made a bond? What had been your journey? What is companies expecting from an intern?
I think work is what speaks for you. Okay. When you go into an internship, a company will never expect you to know everything. But you should have that learning ability. And how do you handle it? Right? For example, I would say I had instances where there were things I didn't know.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
There are things I didn't know. I had an idea on, but I didn't know how to execute it. Right? How to put it down.
Okay.
How did I handle those? What I used to say is, let me explore, and I'll try if this can be done. I never said a no. I never said a yes. That was a diplomatic answer, right? And that was something which was acceptable as well, right? So, understanding how you can diplomatically manage things, at the same time ensuring that your work is done. Because at the end of the day, if in HR terms, if I have to put internship, right, it's a work sample test basically. Work sample test is basically, the highest level of evaluation probably you can do for anyone, because the person is actually working for you.
I'm so sorry. Can you please repeat?
Work sample test.
Work sample test.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say that is the highest level of evaluation that you can do, right? As a company, as a recruiter, or anyone, right? Because that actually shows you what a person delivers.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, internship is actually that, again, within a closed environment, which ensures that kind of ensures that you don't get it done by someone else, because no one will work for 2-3 months for you, right?
Exactly,
They can
yeah.
help you with one small assignment, but then not over a prolonged period of time, right? So you are on your own. How do you do your own research? Do you have that learning ability? How do you build connections within the organization? How do you speak to your mentor, right? How do you know, how do you set your expectations? What do you let him know? What you don't let him know, right? So those all are important things. But at the end of the day, work matters, what you deliver matters. Because, all these are good to have, right? You should have a learning ability. You don't have that, companies are never going to take you, right? And quality of work, the deliver, you should be able to deliver it on time, because internship itself is a close bound period, right? You have to do it then and there, and then go back to your college to pursue your course. That basically happens during the summer vacation of 1-2 months, right? So how do you handle that, right? So that is important.
So how does a company evaluates you, and what are they expecting at the start of the journey of your internship journey, at the end of your internship journey?
Yeah, so it differs company to companies, right? There would be some projects which will be very KPI driven, okay, which will have targets to it. There will be some projects which will be very qualitative.
Okay.
You cannot draw any numbers to that to evaluate how a person has performed there, right? So it depends on company to company. The expectation is usually set by your mentors or managers during the start of the journey, what they expect. Internships usually end with a presentation,
Okay.
and that presentation is done to the higher management of the company. Your mentor would be part of that, usually part of that, or they usually constitute a committee. For example, if the company is too large, right, you cannot always go and interact with the
Yes.
higher management. So the company constitutes a committee for that, which will be evaluating all the interns who have interned with them, right? So basically, you go and present to that intern panel. There will be cross questioning to that. How do you handle that cross questioning, right? Because when they question you, the question will be on your understanding of the process. It cannot be, you just deliver it and it's done and dusted, right? They would be questioning you on the process. What did you do? For example, if, I did a market research, what were the parameters that I considered? Who did I take as my competitors? For example, if I took XYZ as my competitor, the next question would be, why did I take XYZ and not ABC as my competitors?
Got it.
So
Got
how
it.
do you substantiate that? The way you substantiate that is dependent on the knowledge that you have gained during this period.
A big cross questioning.
Correct. So, so it again depends on the knowledge that you have.
Got it completely. So Ajit, you have interviewed in your job offer. I mean, after your MBA journey, and you have been interviewed in the internship phase as well. How is internship? The interviews matter from the full time that you're offered.
Um, well, I was part of very less number of interviews. I think basically one interview after,
Okay.
for the finals. The way it matters is, while in internship, right? The internship interview starts very early, as soon as you get into an MBA college.
Okay.
Right. Just after 2-3 months. So less of subject knowledge, I would rather say, but more of how you present yourself. Do you have that confidence? Do you have that learning ability? And do you have what it takes to get the job done, right? So I believe that's what they look out for internship. And obviously, right, how creative you are, because, and this again varies from companies to company. There would be some companies which would actually like to have people on board to suggest new ideas, right? They would like to experiment new ideas, and these school interns do provide that, right? They would be new into the market. They would be just understanding and how many of them are creative, coming from various fields, right? So how creative you are, and how do you substantiate what you say, right? Are you data driven? That is something companies do look out for. And most of the interviews, right, while internship, while you state a fact, the next question would be, how do you substantiate that fact, right? So how research oriented you are, because in MBA you go through a lot of research papers as well, a lot of publications as well, right? It can be Gartner, it can be Mercer, or any other such consulting, big consulting houses. So how updated you are, that is also something they look
Okay.
out for
Okay.
while in internship. While for finals, although all these stay as such, they would also evaluate on the kind of work that you have done in your internship. There will be questions on that, right? Why did you do it in a certain way and not in some other way?
Okay.
What was your rationale behind that, right? Probably they would be questioning you a lot more on your subjects, right? For example, there are some traditional core companies which come, right? And for HR, probably the core subject would be labor laws as well.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So you get a lot of question on labor laws, right? And labor laws is something, is not something you just, go read in one go and you'll understand and you'll do it, right? It requires continuous effort. There are two aspects to it. One is you just, remembering everything by heart. The other thing is the understanding of it, the implication of it, and how do you use it, right? So there are companies which evaluate you on that aspect as well. There are companies which evaluate you on the memory of it as well.
Okay.
Say, for example, this law is this section of this act, so on and so forth.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So there are those things that companies look out, again, specific to their need, right? And then, yeah, that's what they look out.
Correct. So, talking about the specialization in HR, there is recruitment, there is HRBP position, there is training and development. What all others? And if a person who has done MBA and HRM, how do he choose his stream wisely?
Okay. So, to be honest, in India, it's very much campus driven, right? So, for most of the candidates, most of the students, it depends on what comes to their college, right? So, and sometimes in India, you literally don't get that option.
Correct.
Because one target that the placement committee would be running after is how soon they close the session, right? How soon they, so that, hey, we are done with 100%. That's the race today between MBA colleges as well, right? So you'll be having constant pressure from them as well. So not many a times you get to choose and wait for a role that you actually aspire for. And also, sometimes that wait becomes, stressful for you.
Okay.
Because you would be getting your friends placed and you not being placed, right? That adds on stress to you.
Correct.
And then there would be always a question, what if this role does not come? Right? What if, even if it comes and I am not selected, right? So there are, those conditions, and then you tend to choose the one that you feel is the best, right? So many a times you don't get that option in the first place. So yes, recruitment is one. And this field is evolving, right? Recruitment, we have HRBP, then there are talent management rules that are there. There is HR analytics, which is evolving, which, companies tend to take B school students, right? Because analytics today is being a part of the B school curriculum as well. Then we have OD, we have change management within HR as well. There is HR consulting that is coming up, and that has always been there as well, right? So these are few things. And then there is a blend of it also. Okay, there would be some roles which will ask you to do both talent acquisition and HRBP.
What is an ideal role for an HR?
I would say, it's again, totally driven by an individual's aspiration. But for me, I would say, I started as an HRBP. That gave me a holistic understanding. And the company that I started with was a huge company, right? So it gave me that position where I could go ahead, understand how it affects end masses, right? Every day was a new challenge for me, right?
Yes.
I remember, when I log in on Monday, probably I'll be having 500 mails in my mailbox. Okay, so those were the kind of problems. I have seen it all. Okay, I have in the start of my career, because of the size that I was handling, I have seen termination cases. I have seen people excelling. I have seen fraud cases, and I have handled it.
Okay.
I have seen people crying as well. Okay, so that's again a part and parcel, right? So I have done that. So that gave me a holistic understanding, although it was for a very less time, but I could understand that, what next I want to do. And I am still in that, experimental phase. I still don't want to stop stop at one phase, right? One specialization. I still want to explore that, right? So, because, at end of the day, sometimes that boredom also kicks in.
Yes,
right?
yes.
When you keep doing the same work again and again, and you need a new challenge, right? So I would say don't limit yourself. Be open, but ensure that you don't settle in. Don't get too much comfortable in a role.
Any regrets from MBA life?
The only regret was, probably I should have opened up a lot more, right?
And
And
it would have been a COVID era, right? That way.
yeah, probably second year I would have been much more open than the first year, right?
Yes.
But yeah, so that's the only regret. So if I go back, I'd not be doing that again.
Exactly correct. So moving to your corporate ladder altogether, you have been into HRBP position, and for many HR aspirants, that is an ideal job role they always aspire to become. So, what were your roles and responsibilities, and where do you see this evolution of HRBP roles? Technology driven. There are a lot of technologies incorporating right now HRBP roles. So, where it is moving right now?
Okay. So, as I said, it's a generalistic role. You get to do everything, right from the moment employees are onboarded into a project, because you are HRBP for a specific project or a span. So the moment they come under your span, you have to do everything for them, right?
Yes.
Their grievance management, their the performance management, their anything, any queries that they have to reach out to you. But at the same time, the reason why it's called business partnering is you have to sit down with business leaders to understand their needs and the way they handle their own spans, right? So if I have a business leader who handles a team, right? And if he has certain programs to run, how does he run that? Or if I have some programs to run as an HR intervention, I have to first get a buy-in from the business leader that, hey, I want to do this for you, span. This is the outcome of the initiative that I would be driving, and this is how it will help you and help your business goals. So that is something that a HRBP does today, right? And understanding of business is a must for HRBP. I cannot expect to be an HRBP, say, pharma company without understanding their business. I have to understand the business first to be a good HRBP, right? Otherwise, the initiatives that I run would, they would simply fall apart. I have to understand the people of the company first, because company to company culture also varies, right? The kind of people that I have seen in my first company and the kind of people that I see here are totally different.
Okay.
What I did there, probably if I do here, will fall apart completely. Similarly, from industry to industry also, people do vary, right? Perhaps if I was associated with a bank, what I would have done here would definitely not have worked there, right? So understanding the culture is also important, right? Coming to technology, yes, it is taking over, right? There would be certain activities would be driven by system. If you see earlier, right, everything was manual, especially in HR, right? There were a lot of manual things. There would be files that HRs would be roaming around, right?
Yes.
Today, we don't have any of those. Everything is on system. There's something called HRMS system, Human Resource Management System, right? Or HRIS, Information Systems, which helps HR run the entire activities, right? But then you cannot. Now, it again depends from companies to company, right? For bigger organization, you will just be a sole user. For organizations that are mid to small, probably you would be ending it end to end. So what you want to have to understand is how the system works, right? Because see, tomorrow if I have to design a process as an HRBP, if I have to suggest an intervention which I have to run through the system, I simply cannot design the process without understanding what capability my system has, because then it will be an added manual work for me, my team. The more the manual, higher chances of error, higher chances of people not getting satisfied, my own team members being overburdened and all, right?
Yes.
And as a manager, probably no one would like to do that. So what is needed is, how do I understand the system capabilities? So that is where HR has to also evolve himself or herself, not just from an end user perspective, understanding that, okay, I go click here, this happens. I go click here, this happens. That is more or less anyone can do, right? Even a class 10 student, you put him in front of system, you say him, click here, this will happen, he will do it, right? What's new in that? So you have to understand how the system works, right? The architecture of the system at a very high level. It's not needed that you have to understand the code and all, but how it works, what is possible, what's the workflow of the system, right? You have, for example, if certain thing is not being possible in the system, you should always go back and ask, why is that not possible, right? Until and unless you understand the RCA of a particular process or a particular issue, you'll never be able to decode it. So until and unless you decode it, you'll never be able to master that software or master the technology that you are working on.
Correct.
And once you master the technology, because see, this is a a constant thing which I have observed, right? If you see JDs of HR roles, they would be asking proficiency in Workday is needed, proficiency in Success Factor is needed, proficiency in so and so software is needed.
Yes.
To be honest, my feeling is that is not needed. If you understand the process, if you understand one system architecture, the way things work, you will be able to understand any other system at the end of the day, because the flow will remain the same. For example, if I have to hire a person, the first thing is sourcing, then is screening, then is selection process, then is the interviews, then we roll out the offer, and then a candidate joins. This thing is never going to change in any software. It will always remain the same. So the back end, the backbone of the software will always remain the same. What will change is probably the UI, slight modifications to the way they process the system, right? And that is not a big thing that a person cannot pick up within small time if you have understanding of one system.
Correct. So Ajit, you have worked in starting from your journey as HRBP, then moved into recruitment, and then right now hitting up people in operations part of it, like compensation part of it. So what has been the key differences in these roles, and what do people expect in these different aspect into HR domain?
Okay.
Again.
So you see, HRBP is much of a front end role,
Okay.
where you interact with your employees. Talent acquisition, again a front end, but you interact with probable employees.
Potential
employees.
Yeah.
Right? So there you are in a way brand ambassador of your company as well.
Yeah.
Right? You speak one wrong thing and it's going to go over LinkedIn. Okay.
Exactly.
Right. So your company's image is ruined. Right. So you have to be very, very careful in both these roles. Right. Because even in HRBP, you speak too harshly to a person. And there is no dearth of jobs today, especially in IT. The person will simply put a paper next day and move out, right? So you have to be extremely diplomatic in these cases. I understand there are sometimes asks which are very unreasonable, but how do you deal with it, right? That is something that you have to do in these roles. Very diplomatic. You have to understand the process as well. And there has been a constant saying, right? HR says, I will get back to you, and they never get back. Right. So ensure that you get back. Right. So communication is a key in this role. Communication always plays a major role. Right. Especially in talent acquisition. Right. You close the loop, the person will respect you like anything. Right. But I understand then there are also candidates which I have personally seen. I have called on to say, hey, sorry, you could not clear the interview. This was the reason. Give me another chance. Right. I cannot. Right. Because I have to ensure fairness of the system as well. Yes. And then there's a policy, there's a cool-off period, everything. Right? So even candidates need to understand that, right? So it's a two-way process. So communication is a must in these two roles. Now, when it comes to the role that I am doing right now, it's more of a back-end role, I would say, wherein I don't interact much with the employees, but I interact a lot with the stakeholders. Now, who are my stakeholders? HRBP. They play a major stakeholders because I run my initiatives through them, right? Business leaders will be my stakeholder because anything new that I have to bring in, I have to first essentially go speak to them, take their buy-in, right? And then implement it, right? So I do not interact directly with people, but then I have to interact with the entire organization.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So that's how these two roles differ. And HRBP, as I said, generalistic. So you get bits and bits of everything. You get to understand what compensation is, you get to understand what talent acquisition is, what employee engagement is, everything, right? These two are more of a specialization.
So talking about the industries, because people have a sense of this industry bifurcation where they actually offer industries which are into FMCG or which are into IT, because we have seen the placement stats of many colleges as well where they bifurcate this industry segment altogether. So for you, this FMCG versus IT versus other streams as well, I mean coming into fintech and everything, how do you see this as?
See, at the end of the day, right, as I said, the work of an HR still remains same. is the culture that varies in these companies because of the way they work and the people they deal with, right? For example, if I say a FMCG company, they would be having a lot of blue-collared workers as well, right? Which will not be there in an IT industry.
Correct.
It will be there in a bank.
Agreed.
And then the kind of laws that govern us, right? The laws that governs a bank is different from the laws that governs IT industry. I think level laws are, they're slightly dilute for IT industries than for banks and all, right? So those things come into play, right? So apart from that, right, the base work still remains the same. Is how you deal with people. It's that varies because people itself varies, right? Their background varies and everything varies. And then the law aspect also comes into play,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So in banks, there are unions, for instance, which you don't have in IT industries, right? So we are spared from that trouble in a way, right?
Correct.
So how do you deal with unions, right?
With unions.
You cannot simply go and say them a no on a face,
Yep,
right?
yep.
They will simply revolt. The business will be halted,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Then the management will come bashing at you. Why did the business halt for you, right?
Correct.
Because at the end of the day,
Correct.
money.
Yes.
Everything rolls down to money, right? So how do you handle that, right? How do you handle a union? So those are the things that would come into those specific roles.
Totally, I agree with your point. So yeah, talking about HR analytics part of it, since I think you have used it, and in your course as well, that has been a part of it. So HR analytics right now, how do you see it? Because HR analytics has many of the components again coming into the insights that LinkedIn gives, right? There's set of other analytics things that also do recruiters. I'm not very much sure about, do they actually do programming sort of language? Do they need to understand some sort of programming language to do analytics? And what is this analytics? Is it like only data visualization or data mining or even data, whatnot?
Okay, so there are parts to it. Okay, so if I say what analytics is in simple term and what it means to me, it's pure maths. Okay, maths that we did in class 1, 2, 3, 4
Yes,
probably.
yes,
Okay?
yes.
Simple additions, multiplications, percentages, and all this. Okay, the complication comes into play with the data.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
So more the data, the difficult it becomes because you have to handle that data, right? And data does not always come in a clean format. So that's the first step. You have to get the data cleaned, right? You have to put it in a proper format. You have to put it in a proper sequence to get some insights, to run some matrices, run some calculations, and then get some insights, right? And not all matrices or insights or calculation can be directly drawn from a data set. You probably would need some intermediary calculations there to reach a final set of calculations, right? So that is what HR analytics is, first part, right? Now the second part is insights deriving, right? That's also the final part of it, right? How do you derive an insight? Now for that, what you need is understanding of the entire HR, right? Because within HR, right, if you do one change somewhere, it is going to affect everyone else, right? For example, if I do a change in compensation, I know it is going to affect my employee retention. I know that tomorrow it is going to affect my employee hiring strategies as well, right? Similarly, if I as an HRBP do some intervention or do some modification to my employee engagement activity, I know that it might, act in a positive way, negative way, affecting the entire employee life cycle, right? So how to understand, which are those valuable insights, because see, when you have data, right, you can derive n number of insights. I can say, okay, this is the number of joiners, this is blah blah, so many stuff, right? What is actually important, right? What is actually important for your company? That matters the most. What is the pain point of your company? First, you have to identify that, because you come up with n number of matrices and insights, right? That would be overload. That would be information overload. Who do you present it to? You present it to your management, they would come back and say, hey, I don't need to understand all this. I need to understand only this part because this is my pain area. This is where I have been losing people, for instance. Tell me what is going wrong there, right? So you have to first understand the pain point, then derive insights accordingly. But then while you run an HR analytics, you have to make the project flexible enough so as to reuse it in future, saying that, okay, fine, I have derived these insights today, but tomorrow, if needed, I can draw some more insights using some more matrices, right? So that is what HR analytics and insights is. The dashboarding part, right? The data mining part, that comes when you come with more data. right? So today, this is again evolving, right? I have, there are people who run it on simple Excels because getting data itself is very difficult,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You might have your own company's data. If you want to do a market research, getting some other company's data is extremely difficult for you. You go to consultants, they do it for you, right? So probably they would be having they have their tech teams of their own who kind of do this, right? Who kind of maintain the data, clean the data, do the data mining part, then dashboarding part of it, right? So if you see today certain job roles, they advertise saying BI is needed, Power BI is needed,
Yes, Power
Tableau
BI.
is
Yep,
needed,
yep,
right?
Tableau is needed.
That's because they want even the HR person to do that without actually
Achha.
going to a techie and paying the techie as well.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because at the end, if I have to present something, it has to be a PPT, it has to be a dashboard. Right? Dashboard most probably because it would be a live system, right? I go click something, I see it, I change a filter, I check something, and it's done, right? So they don't want some other person to come understand the system and then do it, because most of the time, even the HR data is confidential, right? For example, if I am in compensation, I am working on compensation. Compensation data is extremely confidential, right? Given it's a different thing that people know each other's compensation, but at the end of the day, that is confidential.
Yep.
The way we model it, the factors that we take into consideration while reaching at a certain compensation or designing a pay slab or whatever it is, those are extremely confidential stuff, right? I really cannot get a techie, right? I mean, we always can, but I would not be very eager to get someone to understand that, because
And look after the compensation of all the individuals involved.
right? I would be very, very, cautious in that approach. I would probably think, what are those data I can probably mask, right? I would
Yes.
probably prepare a dummy data set to give him instead of giving my
Or probably some
original data set,
keywords.
right? Yeah. So, and again, when you tend to give the dummy data set, right? If it is not structured in a proper way, the way your data set is, probably the thing that you would be working on in a building might
Exactly,
not work
yep.
properly for
Yep,
you,
yep.
right? So that's why that thing is also coming into play, because at the end of the day, it's dashboard that matters. So that's what, that's the end product. Starts with data. Your basic maths is what it starts with. It's nothing. I mean, it's simple addition, multiplication, subtraction, percentages, percentiles. That's all it is at the end of the day. And the major part is insights.
I'll give you a situation. You tell me what level of analytics there is involved. Suppose I have to see what are the potential companies that I have to hire a set of candidates from. Suppose I take a Java developer, for example. So I collect my current employees data altogether, about 120, 150, how much of data sets I do have. I do check their companies and probably figure out what the top companies that they have come from and more likely to get accepted in our organization as well, that way. So I've taken that. I have seen in there itself that they are having, like, some of people have joined being a fresher itself, so that we actually can't count because we are doing lateral hiring anyway. So we have to see what are the more potential companies that they're coming from altogether. And I do pull out data from there. I do see what is the pattern coming into picture. I mean, 5+ years where they're coming from, in their mid senior level where they're coming from. So how much level of analytics is involved in this, while in collecting all this data and probably interpreting and getting to know the top companies?
See, you did almost all, right? When you say this, with segment wise, I am checking where they come from. So what would be your next, action, or what would you suggest next? You would suggest probably for this group of people, I should be targeting these companies, right? Now the question arises, how do you target these companies, right? Either, when recruiters do call, you go to Naukri, search for these specific companies and target them. That is one way. Or there are ways where, specific campaigns are launched for these companies, right? So be part of those campaigns. LinkedIn, for instance, I know runs some campaigns, paid campaigns, which would be for specific companies as well.
Even though hackathons, these events as well.
So you open up those, right? So you target that audience. So, that analytics, the analytics that you spoke about, actually gives you target audience. So how it will help you is, it will shorten your turnaround time. Instead of, for example, earlier as a recruiter, for example, if you would focus on, okay, let me get one, some people from this company, 10 different companies, right? And out of those 10 companies, there will be, say, 100 people. You interview these 100 people to get 10, right? Now what will happen is you since you are getting your maximum recruits from those companies, you aim for those 5 companies. You get 50. Out of those 50, you get 10. So what happens is you save time.
Exactly.
You save time of yourself. You save time of your technical panel. By technical panel, what you save time is you save their per hour cost as well, right? Because everyone has a cost, right? You break your salary to per hour, that's a cost, right? So you leave more space for them to do something new, right? It might be interview more candidates, which will fill up your bucket, or go and do some new technical stuff for the company as well, right? So in a way, you are reducing the cost and increasing their productivity as well as yours, right? So that's what this analytics will ultimately lead to.
Correct. So, Jit, I've been asking this question to all the people from corporate, about the future aspect of one's own job. So here since we're talking about the human resources altogether, a lot of improvements are saying into picture. ChatGPT has been a milestone. I mean, then we are going to see an exponential increase in the AI incorporation in many of the jobs, or even the automation part of it. Since you're also have been engaged in many of the automation, these campaigns. So where do you see these human resources? And there are many specific, these roles as well under this HR, which is going to be obsolete today or later, or probably it needs upskilling. So which need upskilling in some of the aspects of HR, like recruitment, where they need to have some project management skills as well, because the time when they're not hiring, they need to upgrade their complete recruitment to some other level. So where do you see this the human resources field is going when the AI, the automation coming into practice?
So, this makes me go back to my college days. Okay. There was a constant question from our student community to whosoever came as a guest speaker, who most of them, do you think HR jobs will be obsolete? Okay. Do you think tech will be replacing HR?
Because many do fear when they're choosing many HR. Fear, HR feel they're like, yeah, it is a people job. It is anyways going to be obsolete after some time.
But I personally feel, and what has been the constant opinion from the guest faculties there as well, is a big no, right? Humans are the most complicated process one can have.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You devise something for yourself that is not going to work out for me. Right? We are the most subjective animal in this earth, right? So nothing is going to replace that. AI today, at least the way it is there, I can probably think of that. Yes, AI will ease a lot of HR jobs, but definitely it is not going to take it away. Okay. The way chat GPT or those kind of stuff work, right? It is based on past, right? I understand that there are developments where machines will be learning themselves on the go, right? But we are not there yet. But even that learning themselves on the go will be something which would be based on something that has already happened, right? Not something which will be happening. Probably they can take that call on a data-driven thing, which is very much unlikely for humans.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because everyone is unique in himself or herself, right? So it will aid human resources, but it is not going to obsolete the human resources job. On the other hand, we have this chatbots coming up as well, right? Which is again an AI intervention, right? Which has helped human resources in a way doing away with certain queries. So instead of you approaching a HRBP or your HR, you go ask that bot, half of your problem is solved, right? But then I was part of an event where the speaker asked, and the discussion was on technical advancements in HR, right? One of the speakers asked, how many of you, and everyone in that room was HR, okay? How many of you as an HR would like to interact with an HR chatbot? No one raised their hand.
Exactly. I am able to recall a movie called Up in the Air. It is about layoffs, right?
Yeah.
One of the very young ladies, she started to put some bot into the laying off thing, and that was not accepted by many individuals. I mean, if someone is getting fired or getting laid off, they mostly want to be interviewed by a complete
Correct.
person, not by a machine.
Yeah.
And there actually something happened wherein that lady who was getting laid off told that I'm going to commit suicide. So these guys are like, she's probably not, and the machine didn't listen. She actually did that. So how is machine is going to handle those complicated reasonings?
So we have that EQ which machines today do not have, right?
Ah.
So until and
And they
unless,
want a human touch. Everyone
correct,
wants a human
everyone
touch.
wants a human touch. I would rather say, if I order something on Zomato, the order is delayed or something, or Swiggy or whatever platform it is, right? I'd rather prefer to speak to an executive rather than speak to a bot, right?
Exactly.
Who just has a definite set of answers, because I know my questions are not getting answered. It keeps on repeating the same answers again and again, right? So that's the same thing that happens with human resources as well, right? We need that human touch. We need that EQ. As you said, the person was saying, she said, perhaps had an HR been there, they would have been able to handle
something
it, because
different.
we understand
Yeah.
what is that, right?
Yeah.
We understand what mental health is. A robot or machine or AI will never understand that. At least we are not there till now. We might be there in future, but
It basically like comparing, this laying off over mail or laying off in person.
correct. Yeah.
Machines versus humans, right?
Yeah.
That is some of those kind of interaction that
Yeah.
people have. Exactly. So Ajit, I think we are done here. I mean, thanks for the time that you have given. It will rightly, I would say, a very informational podcast that we have all together. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me here.